Tesla Model 3, Volkswagen ID4, and Bolt EUV. This is the future I hope for. Pretty soon, every household will have EVs. Hello, welcome to Geeking Out with Shad. Yes, it won't be long before every household at least has one EV. I was just reading about a friend of mine who is buying an EV, but he also has a van. So he's going to drive the EV to and from work for most of his driving and just use his van for like road trips and stuff. That's similar to what I do with my Toyota Tacoma. I rarely ever drive that thing. And in fact, it's gotten to the point now where when I have to fill gas in that thing, I do it so rarely that I just hate the experience. And I talked about that in a previous video. So why am I talking about this so much? Well, there are some big breakthroughs coming and very soon that are really going to change the EV game. I know there's a whole bunch of EV haters out there. Those are generally people that are kind of stuck in their ways. They struggle with progress and things like that. But for the most part, I think more and more people are realizing that yes, EVs are here to stay. They will become the dominant vehicle and so on and so forth. So here's a few things that I want to talk about. One is Toyota. Toyota changed CEOs. The previous CEO seemed very adamantly against EVs, or at least going all EVs, and Toyota's been making kind of a half effort to do an EV, and then they did release it. It's got a terrible name. I don't even know what it is. B4Z or some weird. I just, that's another problem, right? If you name your vehicle where people don't even know what the name of it is, terrible. Anyway, it got released and it had all kinds of problems and stuff. That is not something anybody expects from Toyota. Like, I have a Tacoma, and it's funny because I was reading about the reliability of vehicles, and my Tacoma 2020 has almost 30,000 miles on it, and it has had zero problems. Absolutely none. I have not had to take it to the dealership and say, hey, this little thing's funky or whatever. That is reliability. That is what Toyota is known for. So for them to release a car and have it be buggy and have issues is not normal. So the new CEO just announced that Toyota is now going to shift its priority focus to EVs. And they said they're still going to work on hybrid and hydrogen vehicles as a transition, but their main focus is going to be EVs. That's huge because that's kind of the final automaker to finally embrace EVs. GM's said they're going to do it. Ford has said they're going to do it. DeSantis, that's a huge company now. They bought Fiat, so ever since they bought Fiat, now they own Ram, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, and all of those brands. So, and they're promising to go to an EV future. It's kind of funny because when I think of Jeep, Dodge, and Ram and Chrysler, if you think of them as like pure American brands, and they're not even American brands anymore. It's pretty weird. And the reliability of those is kind of gone with what the reliability you'd expect from a Fiat, kind of tanked. They're just not very great vehicles. I don't understand the reliability thing, especially today. I won't get into that in this video, but let's talk about EVs. So that's one thing, Toyota embracing EVs. The next one is the battery breakthroughs that are coming down the pipe. I need some coffee. Right now, there is a ton of research being done for batteries. And cobalt is an issue. Everybody knows that now. There's been news articles about it, whatever. The Congo, it's just like the way they treat the people there in that country is terrible, and that's where most of the cobalt is. And I'm sure there's cobalt elsewhere in the world, but because that's the place, everybody seems to want to get it. And the main culprit for producing that, what's going on in Congo, isn't the United States, it's China. So if you do some research on that, it's usually China, and the main thing that started it all were these devices. I know the EV haters want to blame EVs for these child labor issues and things in the Congo, but it really started with all these electronic devices that we had. Automakers are really trying hard to get away from certain rare earth minerals, and cobalt is one of them. So the solid state battery, there's been a lot of big breakthroughs with that. It still has a little ways to go, but some significant breakthroughs. The solid state battery for EVs is going to be a game changer. It's actually going to be a game changer for everything. It's going to allow charging your car much, much faster. It's going to be half the size of the batteries we have today, giving you the same range. I don't think manufacturers are going to make 600, 700 mile range vehicles. It just doesn't make sense. What they will probably do is downsize the battery and keep the vehicles right around 300. I mean, if you think of what a gas-powered vehicle's range is, it's like 300 to 400 miles, unless you got like a truck or something with dual tanks and whatever, right? Like, but for the most part, if you have a hybrid, you might get up to 500 or so miles, but most gas-powered cars, 300 to 400 miles. So I think that's pretty reasonable for the range of a battery. So I think the cars will get lighter, because that makes more sense. You want your car not to be as heavy as they are today, the EVs. It'll get lighter, then it'll accelerate quicker, it'll take less energy to propel the car, all the advantage of having a lighter vehicle. Plus have the same capacity, and because solid state batteries will be able to charge much faster, when you stop to recharge, it won't take that long. You won't have to wait an hour or whatever, right? So, yeah, I think the solid state battery breakthrough is going to be a huge game changer in EVs. I'd say they're going to start coming out in the next few years, probably rare in some cars, but then they're going to come out in full force probably between 5 and 10 years from now. So yeah, that's going to be a huge game changer. And yeah, it's EVs are well on their way to becoming the mainstream vehicle. And then the next announcement was by the Biden administration. And this is really important. This is smart. Because a lot of times the government will say, okay, you're required to do this, or you can get government incentives to do this. So, of course, it used to be called the Build Back Better. Now it was called the Inflation Reduction Act, which is absolutely not the right name for it. But there's a ton of incentives for companies to build out the charging infrastructure. But the Biden administration, probably from seeing what's happening, is like Electrify America is definitely the culprit here so far from what I see, is their chargers aren't very good. They're not very reliable. There's been a few cars bricked at Electrify America stations, things like that. So there's new policy in place that if you use tax money to build out your infrastructure, your government funded money, you are required to have a certain amount of uptime, quality, a maintenance plan to keep your chargers maintained and running, and so on and so forth. And even at like some places where they say they have chargers, they're going to be required to have a certain number of fast chargers, because if somebody's on the road, a level 2 charger isn't going to cut it. I see level 2 chargers all over when I go on the apps and stuff, and it's like, well, a level 2 charger isn't going to do me any good if I'm on a road trip. So there's all these new policies coming out that are going to back this government incentive to force these companies to maintain a certain standard of chargers. That's really important because right now, and I just did a video on it a couple videos back, the charging experience is not very good. Consistent payment method. That was another big one. Like, you should be able to just use your credit card. And, like right now, if you want to go to ChargePoint, you have to have a ChargePoint app. Electrify America, actually, I was able to use my card at one, but they have an Electrify America app, an EVgo app, right? Like, it shouldn't be so complicated. When you go get gas, you can just use your credit card, right? So that's part of this policy that's really important, is kind of the standardization, making sure that if they're going to use government money to build out their charging infrastructure, they got to adhere to a certain standard and a certain set of guidelines. That's important. I really like that. So that's really it in a nutshell of where we're headed. So there you have it. More on EVs. Probably that's the topic I tend to cover the most. I know I do some programming. I've reviewed drones, my phone, things like that. But EVs seem to be the hot topic and seem to be the one thing I've been focusing on mostly. But I'll still do the other videos here and there. I'm actually thinking of getting one of those new DJI, I forget what it's called, but it's the new FPV drone with the goggles. I'm really interested in that drone, so I might get one of those and do a review on it and stuff. Anyway, I appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.